Hi, and welcome back to the Mortgage Broker broadcast. My guest this week is mortgage broker Antony Randall. The reason why I wanted to get Antony onto the podcast, a couple of reasons really. One is the main one was that he came from banking, personal banking world straight into the self-employed mortgage broking world. So he didn't do any of the steps of banking, mortgage advisor banking, estate agency, then into the self-employed world. He just went straight from being a personal banker straight into being a self-employed mortgage broker. So I wanted to get Anthony onto the podcast so he can share his thoughts, what he was going through at the time, why he wanted to do that, and all those other things as well. And the other bit point of it as well is talking about how he proactively reached out. Yes, he works within my firm. Yes, Anthony and I work together. However, the big thing and the takeaway for me was Anthony reached out to me and the firm when we weren't advertising any vacancies. He demonstrated how proactive he was, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about on the podcast. So enough of me going on. Let's get Anthony onto the podcast. So welcome to the podcast, Anthony. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Yourself?
Very good, thank you. Good. And we're going to talk about obviously your journey and everything in financial services. But first of all, big win for Leeds at the weekend, the team you
Yeah, it was.
support.
Yeah, it was a nice win, 2 in a row now. So getting away from the relegation zone, which is the priority at the minute.
Yeah, but it is for Leeds. So not being a Leeds fan myself, but I do pay attention to what's going on in the football world with the we won't use our normal terminology for Leeds United, but we'll call them Leeds United for the sake of the clean podcast, shall we say. So, but good. Thanks very much for agreeing to be on the podcast. I think it's going to be great. I think from other podcasts that I've done, from a banking, building society experience into becoming self-employed mortgage brokers, people have tended to be mortgage brokers before or mortgage advisors, where from your journey, which we're going to hear all about, yours was very much from a personal banker or universal banker, whatever the actual terminology is, the personal banker into mortgage, self-employed mortgage broking. So I'm pleased you got on the podcast, and yeah, looking forward to hearing about what's gone on over the last 12 months or so. Is it fair to say 12 months?
Yeah, I'd say from start, probably shy of, to be fair. I'd say closer to about 8 months realistically from start to finish.
Wow. See, that's the thing already, Anthony. Look at how time flies. I'm thinking you've been here within the firm a year. You've been here 8 months, and but absolutely, and it's great to have you part of the firm. And yeah, everything's going really well, which we'll hear all about. So first of all, while I'm rambling on, let's just first of all, Antony Randall, mortgage advisor, mortgage broker at CS Mortgage Solutions. Do you want to give people a bit of a background? Obviously, not talk about football, but just talk about your journey, like your experience in financial services.
Yeah, absolutely. So I be honest, I didn't really see myself ever going into the financial services side of things. It was more of I fell into it rather than I started aiming for it, shall we say. So I ended up, I started at NatWest working in a very similar role as you meant. You sort of alluded to a personal banker. So very similar role with NatWest in terms of, I can't actually recall what they called it. Yeah, my other half, or wife as she is now, but other half at the time, had moved down to Skipton. She lived down on her own, so I started looking for jobs in the area to go live with her.
Right.
I did an interview at NatWest. They said yes, you can have the job, but up actually where I was originally based in Thirsk. So I didn't end up moving with her, but I took the job. Fell into that role. Like I say, it was more luck than judgment in terms of I was just looking for a job at the time. Did that for a couple of years and then switch allegiances to a different company, i.e. HSBC. Once I then, or at that stage, I then, sort of started trying to progress my career. I ended up there for 7 years in total at HSBC. So quite a long
Wow.
stint that I did there,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. That's definitely a long swim like that.
Yeah, from different branches, Ripon, Thirst, Northallerton, Harrogate was where I ended up at the end. And yeah, probably about 4 years into it, I decided I was going to start trying to do my CeMap, my mortgage advice qualification. And then we found out that my other half was pregnant with who is now our eldest, Lily. and that sort of went on the back burner. I passed my first out of the 3 exams you do. I passed my first of those, and then kind of fell on the back burner a little bit just because I was concentrating on that. I actually took 6 months out of HSBC on shared parental leave as well because they offered that. So I had 6 months with Lily as a newborn, which was absolutely amazing. If I'm honest, it's not an opportunity that many males get with the children. So then I sort of started to reconcentrate on it, and then she fell pregnant with Flora, our youngest. So it went on the back burner a little bit again.
Did you get another 6 months out then at that time?
I did.
Oh, nice.
So I can't complain actually in that regard. HSBC were really, really good to me to get me that time off, like I say, which is an opportunity that most people don't get. Once I then started to get to a stage where I knew I'd be going back to work in 2-3 months or whatever after Flora had been born, that was when I really knuckled down to go, right, well, let's just get the other two exams passed. Studied, passed both of them within a month just to get it done, just from not really doing a lot to pretty much cramming at least 2-3 hours a day. It just goes to show that even though they say 12 months, if you really wanted to cram it, you could get it done quickly. And then from there, it was a case of start looking and seeing what jobs were available. But that's sort of the initial, shall we say, way that I fell into or got into the mortgage advice side of things. When I started looking, I was mainly looking at employed roles. There wasn't really self-employed. Never really came into my thought process. I'd never been self-employed. Not something I thought about doing, especially with 2 young children. To go to a stage where you had a steady income to, it's self-employed. Any self-employed role, there's no guaranteed of an income every month. And then from there, it was I basically sent a few sort of chasers out. I did probably what most people that were looking for mortgage advice would do, which would be a case of looking up local mortgage advice firms or mortgage broker firms. Came across obviously CS Mortgages, and although there wasn't any adverts or anything, as you say, it just looked like the right. It looked like the right company for me. You get a feel for these things, don't you? You get an idea of what looks good. The people there seemed happy. Like you say, the fact that it came up on Google as one of the top mortgage advice firms in the area meant to me that obviously if I'm seeing that, that's what potential clients are going to see as well. Sent you an email saying, are you hiring? And the rest is kind of history from there. We had a chat, and like I say, it went from not being something that I'd really thought about to all of a sudden flipping it on its head and saying, well, I've loved having the time off with my girls. I like managing my own time. So as long as financially we can still be stable at that stage as well, then there's a heck of a lot of pros that would help in terms of family life, to be able to spend more time with my girls. So
definitely,
that's basically how I then ended up where I am.
And to be honest with you, I'm busy scribbling down here because I've not, even though I do know you and obviously part of the firm, I'm quite keen to not go into any podcast and interview with any preconceived notes and stuff like that when I know somebody, kind of thing. And there's loads of things that I'm sort of scribbling down because then I can recall the journey because obviously I was there for part of it in terms of the conversations we had. But going back to some of your points you're making, you fell into financial services. I think we all do, mate. I think every single person, and there's very few people that wake up and go, do you know what? I want to work in financial services. I fell into it. I think most mortgage brokers, a lot of firm owners fell into financial services as well. So it just tends to be that way. I like the one point that I want to pick up on, and there's a couple of them, and I wanted to have a chat with you about, is that when you sort of did your CeMap 1, which you can advise under CeMap 1, you can still do it and get without your CeMap 2 and 3 and you need to get eventually, but you can initially advise. But I think the one thing you did your CeMap 2 and 3 in a short space of time, and I think you absolutely 100% right. And I go on a little bit about this, talking about, because CeMap's not changed. It's no difficult or easier now than what it was when I passed my CeMap a few years ago. It's still the same sort of process and stuff like that. But I did my CeMap in 2 weeks. I did my CeMap one. I went away from home Sunday, Monday to Thursday, lived, eat, breathed, CeMap one. Probably like no limited contact with home, just literally focused on what I needed to do. Got my mind maps out of there and did all those sorts of things. Did a 4-day course, went to the IFS testing center on the Friday, passed my CeMap one, and then did exactly the same for the CeMap 2 and 3. Did it the second week, so I did, and I think that's fair. But I think if you've got that driving determination like you had, it's like, why waste time? Just crack on it, because you can do it. You can do it if you make time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest with you, I'd say, because obviously I've got it, I suppose, from both sides, because CeMap 1, I sort of delayed and dawdled a little bit with it, and that probably took me 6 months realistically. And then, as I say, 2 and 3, I got both passed within a month. I'd say, if anything, it was, although a lot more cramming, like I say, in 2 and 3, it was easy because it keeps it fresher in your mind as well. So if you're doing 2 and 3 and you're really cramming it, obviously you've only got to recall the last month of studying. If you've done it over 6 months, by the time you're at the end of the studying, you've got 6 months ago to think about what you did at the start.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there is overlapping with CeMap 1, 2, and 3. There is overlapping. And I think as well, if you've got your head into exam testing mode, just get them done. Like, just get it done in one foul swoop, rather than thinking about, I'm going to get my CeMap 1 done, then I'll park it for a little while. Obviously, your circumstances were totally different, and I get that. But I think people are sort of, I want to become a mortgage broker. I want to be an advisor. I'm going to take 12 months to do it. And it's like, well, no, you can do it so much quicker. But I think, like you say, it's just down to get your head in testing mode, get it done. It's easier. It's going to take you a while to get your head back into. If you put a gap in between, say 6 months, it's going to take you a few weeks to get head back into testing, exam, condition kind of mentality. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of so I'm always thinking, just you're in that head, you're in that zone, you're in that space, your mind's in that place. Just get them done what you need to do. Just take that time to do it. So interesting to see that you actually did that on the second part of things. So I just wanted to pick up on that. And the biggest thing that I wanted to pick up on, which I absolutely have so much time, and it's probably something that I need to do a something separate on. But you went out, and the way that you went to find the firm and the business and the role you wanted was 110% spot on. I think if anybody it's exactly what I would do. If I wanted to do that job, I wouldn't be trolling the likes of CV Library and all those other things. I'd be actually out there going, right, where do I want, which firms look aligned with my values? Which firms are there? I don't care whether they're recruiting or not, right this second. I'm not looking for the ad. I'm just reaching out to firms that I would like to be part of. And that was the big thing for me, like I said to you at the time, is that you're proactive with what you're doing. Hats off to you. Like, you were proactive in terms of what you wanted to do. It just shows you that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
And you'd be proactive with your clients and your way of life. Everything about you gave me the sense of, this guy's proactive. And he shares the values. You know what? It's like our conversation was about the values. I'm very clear with the values. And that was the thing, is like the values were aligned, but you weren't out there looking for, let's look at CV. Let's have a look on LinkedIn who's recruiting. It's like, well, do you know what? I'll go and find the firm and I'll push my way in to then want them. They then want me, rather than me reacting to an advertisement, shall we say.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, in terms of, like you say, I think the right word is being proactive. And that, as you've quite rightly alluded to, definitely fits in with the mortgage advice and brokerage side of things anyway, because especially as a self-employed mortgage advisor, if you're not proactive, then you're not going to realistically get anywhere. You need to be, well, yeah, the right word is proactive. You need to be, trying to find those clients, but also be out there so that they can find you.
Yeah, definitely. And when obviously you're thinking about the new role, you're reaching out to firms and you're looking at what you ideally looking for, and you were honest there, sort of saying about self-employed wasn't something that you actually earmarked right at the beginning. What was the thing that sort of inspired you most to be self-employed rather than just sticking to your guns, so to speak, and thinking, you know what, I need that employed role? What was the sort of what was going through your head that time, and obviously talking to your partner's head as well, talking to her as well?
Yeah, I think, and that, yeah, again, what you've just mentioned there about my partner, that was one of the big things I liked when I spoke to yourself. Was that was one of the main things you said when we were having the conversations of, is this right for me? Was, don't make the decision now. It's not just you. It's not just me. I.e., that this will impact. It will impact my partner and my children as well. So you were certainly adamant's probably not the right word, but definitely telling me that I needed to speak to her as well and get her insight and her input on that, which again, I suppose helped in a way because it made me feel like you weren't going, right, you want to work for us, when can you start? It was definitely a considered approach, shall we say. But what went through my mind when I was looking at the self-employed was, like I say, I think a lot of it was the main worry anyone has when they go from employed to self-employed is like I mentioned earlier, you don't have a set income. You can't say I'm getting set amount each month. That's just not how self-employment works. And that was the main scary point for us, I suppose, is the right way of putting it, because we were so used to having two incomes at a certain amount each month. You can budget, you can balance, you know what you've got coming in, you know your outgoings, you know what you're going to have left over, you know what your disposable income is going to be. You're self-employed, you don't get that. So I
You
think
can
that was,
try, but no, you don't get that.
I think that was the main, well, the worry for it. But what outweighed the negative for me was just the fact that, like I said, I get the opportunity to spend more time with my family. I can manage my own diary. If one month I know I need to do more, then I can be proactive. I can go out and find more clientele. If one month I think to myself, I need a bit of time to do something else, I can do that as well. There's no micromanagement when you're self-employed. You don't have someone over you constantly saying, what are you doing today? What are you doing now? You've got 10 minutes. What are you doing with that 10 minutes? And I think that's one of the big things I disliked about employment. So that's definitely one of the bigger things. But also, I have quite a lot of quite successful people around me in my family. My partner's father-in-law is very successful. A few of her other family are the same, and they're all self-employed. There aren't many people in my life, and I'm not saying that there aren't successful people that are employed, but there are many more people in my life that seem to have made a go of it and become more successful when they're self-employed, when they've done it themselves and gone out on their own. So I think that sort of swayed it as well. And I did have a chat with him as well. Like I say, he's probably one of the biggest influences on us because he's so successful. You automatically look up to someone that is like that. And that's what I did. I looked up to him, had a chat with him, said, what does he think about the scenario? And again, he was a massive advocate of, you will, if you when you're employed, you can put in as much effort as you want, but you will only get to what your employment is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When you're self-employed, you get out what you put in. The more effort you put in, the more you will get out of it. And that's what definitely swayed it as well for me.
Definitely. I think that's a great analogy that you have got a ceiling point, and that's why I went like the journey I took was a very similar sort of thing. Like, well, I was employed within the banking world. There was a ceiling. I then moved away from that, and I had another ceiling still being employed, but then that ceiling's now totally gone, and
Yeah.
it's sort of like now, yeah. So it is a great analogy that you do get out what you put in. But you've got the flexibility and freedom to do that. There's no the micromanagement, but you're giving that, you're trading that security of the monthly income. You know when you was employed, you know exactly to the penny what you was going to get paid on whatever day you got paid, and you're trading that for actually insecurity. But what you're benefiting from insecurity from an income point of view, but what you're benefiting from is the freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it. And I think it's a great point, like you say, an analogy and a lifestyle to live that way, because like you can. I think once you've got your pipeline up and running and your pipeline's turning, you've got a good idea what your income's like.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? It's I think the daunting side of things in terms of the income is realistically just going from one extreme to the other. But once you've done it for, let's say, a year, realistically, you get a rough idea of what you're going to be looking at anyway. You can sort of work out what you're going to get. So it's not a case of having no idea. You still have a rough idea. You just don't have a guaranteed exact amount.
Yeah, I know that. And to be honest with you, there's some advisors, some self-employed brokers that I know do have. They pay them, so they have like two separate accounts going on. So
Yeah.
like whatever they get paid from a self-employed point of view goes into a bank account, but then every single month the same amount gets transferred out. So they might find that yes, one month they have this, they might not have a good month in terms of completion, so they take a little bit more comes out than's going in. But ultimately, it's just getting that balance right. But they know that actually month in month out, they want to earn this, and that's what they're earning. So there is that stability there. But I think like Jess was on the podcast last week talking about pipeline. I think that's the thing. If you've got the pipeline and it's turning, it will give you some sort of stability as well. So everything we've heard so far, Anthony, that you've been proactive, is give you work-life balance. You've obviously got support from your family, your friends, and stuff like that. What's sort of like been your biggest challenge over the last 8 months?
I think I think the pipeline's probably the biggest challenge realistically, and I imagine it is for most mortgage advisors because you're starting with nothing unless you're coming from somewhere else within the mortgage advice area or at least financial services where you can bring a pipeline with you, which I imagine is very rare. You are starting out with nothing, so you do have to build up your client base from the ground up. And I know in terms of the way it works with CS, it certainly helps getting some of the obviously pipeline coming through the website and things definitely helped me in terms of building my pipeline side of things. But also it's just, I think for me, the biggest challenge is things like getting my name out there. So I'm not particularly good at things like social media. I'll quite openly say that I try, and we've obviously been on meetings together with social media gurus, shall we say, who've said, look, this is the way to do it and whatever. But yeah, I think trying not to let yourself get your head down if, for example, you put one post out and it doesn't get any interest on social media, just to stick at it and knowing that eventually it will happen, but it's not an overnight thing of, look, I'm a mortgage advisor and everyone's going to come flocking, because that's not how it works.
Yeah. No, definitely. But I think the thing is what you have used, so the social media bit aside, you have used your networking, you've used your friends, family, you've put your name out there so you have done the networking side of things. I mean, you're not just thinking, oh yeah, I need to get on social media and do that, because you've looked at other avenues rather than just social media. That's fair, because you do that's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I feel networking between family and friends and things like that. You know, like I get some leads from friends who have seen other people put online, I'm after a mortgage advisor, and they've said, look, we've got this person that we know that's good at it. And I think that's one of the big ones as well, is social media aside, referrals are massive for a mortgage broker, whether it be from friends, family, or past clients. They are a huge way that we build our pipeline. So I think that's one thing that I'd give as advice to any new mortgage advisor, is make sure you do well, because even if you feel like you've done okay with one client, as long as they feel like you've looked after them, you've got the potential of 10 clients through that one person if they suddenly know other people. Obviously 10's an exaggerated number, but you've got a lot more chance of getting additional clients through someone that's very happy, than someone that just says, well, you did an okay job.
Yeah, definitely. I think referrals is a big thing that people miss out on time and time again, because they're just worried about, yes, they're worried about new stuff coming in, but then they're worried about the social media posts and don't ask for referrals. And I know some great businesses out there, they're very successful, and that's all they do. They don't do any social media, don't do any Google, no nothing. It's all on referrals, and they've created a great brand that way, which is great for them. And like I say, I think it's just something that can be missed from time to time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've reminded me a few times of doing it as well. I say personally that I will do it with every person because, like you say, it can get missed. But I think the more I get into the experience, if that makes sense. I think that's the right way to put it. Is it comes with experience, knowing what to do with each client in terms of asking them for referrals and making sure that they give you, Trustpilot reviews, for example, are another massive thing for mortgage advisors. If I suppose if I flip it on my head and say, look, I look at it as if I'm the client. If I'm going on somewhere and looking for a mortgage advisor, I'm damn straight going to go for the one that has 15, 20, 30 Trustpilot reviews at 5-star than the one that just says, I'm really good, but there's no reviews. It's natural human instinct that you're going to trust those other people to say he's done a good job. So I think that's another thing is, the reviews are massive as well.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with you on that. And so when you look back at the last 8 months of the blood, sweat, tears and everything that you've sort of gone through, and if you sort of sat down and reviewed and reflected on the last eight months, has it gone according to plan? Is it better, worse than what you thought?
I genuinely can hand on heart say it's the best decision I've ever made. Don't let my wife hear that because she'll say
I'm
that
going to say, yeah.
marriage.
Just so you know, this is recorded and does go out to quite a few people, mate. So just hopefully she's not got no interest in a mortgage broker podcast, hopefully.
But no, in terms of how it's gone in the last 8 months for me, it's gone fantastic. From obviously going through the dreaded compliance and things like that, and the first few months are certainly you're constantly worrying, making sure that you do everything perfectly, which obviously that's part of the job anyway, to make sure you do it perfectly. But when you're new to the role, you're constantly worried you're going to get something wrong, and it's just knowing that actually you will get it right. It's just you just need to relax, which is easy to say now, but when you first start out, it's not. But in terms of the last 8 months, pipeline's building up really well. We moved house, and the fact that I had slight flexibility to be able to move house, whereas obviously people would have to take holidays and things like that if they're in an employed role as well. We've moved to a house that needs some renovations, so I've managed to be able to get some time in between appointments and things to be able to do that as well, which is nice. But the main thing for me, which obviously you can tell with the fact that I took the two lots of 6 months out with my two girls, is I'm a massive family man. I would do anything for my girls, and the fact that I can have time to be able to spend time with them, see them more often, see them grow up. The amount of people I speak to that have got children that are now grown up and say, enjoy it while it lasts because they grow up so quick. I have that opportunity to enjoy it. And that's the biggest thing for me is in the last 8 months, I've realized how lucky I am to have that opportunity.
There's nothing more to say, Antony, on that. I think that's just a great way and such a positive way to end the podcast. I've taken up half an hour of your time and really appreciate you being on here. Anything we've missed or not talked about that you want us to talk about?
Not really, no. Like I say, I think more than anything, I just want to say thank you for the chance.
No problem. No, I understand. I appreciate you being part of what we've achieved and as a business of CS Mortgage Solutions and the group, like in terms of what we've achieved. I think it's testament to you of how quickly you've settled in, delivered on what you said you were going to do. And it just goes back to that, puts a smile on my face of the proactive Antony that reached out, coming up for 12 months ago and actually bothered to do you know what? I know you're not recruiting, but I'm the person that will like you. That was, I think that sort of, when you look back at that time, it just proves I will always listen to somebody who does that. And whether it works out working together or not, I will always listen to somebody that reaches out proactively. And that's just proven that in terms of the way that you are in your own values, that it just proves right that you've done exactly as you said, you've done exactly what you said you was going to do. So I appreciate that. Antony, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your journey. Looking forward to sort of seeing the next part in 2022 and what the future holds for you. So thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.